Hello, folks. Dan Kroll here. Welcome back to the Britt Kanawha West Hancock podcast, episode 71. And tonight I have one of the best athletes from the 1960s and arguably ever. He still is in the record books for several things. Mr. Bob Nielsen. How you doing tonight, Bob?
Thank you. I'm great.
Good. I've been excited. I was telling Bob, it seems like forever ago I asked him to do this, and he said yes. And then several months later, it's finally here. So I'm excited for this episode. Before we get to Bob, I need to recognize my sponsors. The goal, as always, is to raise money for the Sanger Legacy Fund and let people tell their stories and reminisce at the same time. I have 18 sponsors tonight. You can see on my screen. I have Avalon Rose Design, Sportsman's Corner in Algona, McNeese Tire and Auto, Miller and Sons Golf Cars, Ewing Funeral Home and Monument Company, Nick Schmidt, Jay Hiscox of State Farm, Advanced Door Systems in Forest City, the Britt Car Truck Bike Tractor Night Cruise, Bill Frito, a classmate of Bob's, Levi Dunn Trucking, Swenson's Do It Best Hardware, Farmers Trust and Savings Bank, Eric Kroll with Ag Performance, Window World of Mason City, Kelly Real Estate and Britt, First State Bank, and Triple B's Food. Like always, the Sanger Legacy Fund is to raise money for the West Hancock Hall of Fame. We give scholarships to graduating seniors. We support athletic and activity funds at West Hancock and any other community outreach project. So please reach out to me if you want to sponsor the podcast. You can also go to sangerstrong.com to give or to learn more. One way we're raising money for the Sanger Legacy Fund is the book I'm currently writing. It's called On West Hancock. It's the history of the Britt and West Hancock football and wrestling programs. I've been researching and writing it now for about 2 years. Diane Troutman is my editor, doing an awesome job with helping me with that. The book is $25, and that includes shipping. Let me know if you want to buy a copy. Send me a message on Facebook or email me at daniel.e.crawl@gmail.com. So I'm real excited to push this book out here in a couple months. All right, I'm going to get to a few sponsors, and then we're going to be ready to talk to Bob Nielsen. The Jay Hiscox State Farm Team in Britt is a proud supporter of West Hancock and the Legacy Fund. Give Jay or Lindsay a call at 843-3563. Farmers Trust and Savings Bank is located in Britt, Buffalo Center, Lake Mills, Lakota, and Bryceland, Minnesota. Check them out at ftsbbank.bank or on Facebook. And then Nick Schmidt, he'll be a future podcast guest. He's a 2000 West Hancock graduate and wanted to give back to the Legacy Fund, so thanks to Nick. And then Sportsman's Corner in Algona is the power sports leader in north central Iowa. They offer Honda and Can-Am side-by-sides, ATVs, and motorcycles with a full service and parts department available. You can check them out at sportsmanscorner.net. And then McNeese Tire and Auto is your local tire expert. They're located just a mile west of Britt. Call them at 843-3536. All right, Bob, you ready to rock and roll? Talk some Britt sports?
Oh, yeah.
Let's do it. Like I said, Bob Nielsen, 1961 Britt graduate. Tell everyone a little bit what you're up to these days, Bob. Where are you at? What's keeping you busy?
Well, I'm in Council Bluffs, Iowa. It's still married to my wife, Gail. That's about 55 years. My two kids still live in this area. Jeff, my boy, and Angela, my daughter. Angela actually is a pharmacist at Jenny Edmondson Hospital. My boy is a head golf pro at a course here in Council Bluffs.
Nice. And
I'm retired. I retired a number of years ago from teaching. Of course, I taught for 33 years. But as of right now, I'm still coaching. I'm still coaching track. So.
Yep. And tell everyone where you're coaching right now, where you're doing the track gig.
At Thomas Jefferson High School.
Jefferson still. Yeah. And how many years have you been doing that total now?
Oh boy. Track wise, this is my 53rd year of coaching track.
Wow.
Before that, I've been at that school since 1970, and I came there as the track coach. I was assistant football coach, assistant basketball coach. Then I became a head basketball coach that I coached for 13 years. I continued to coach football, so I went from football to basketball to track for 25 years probably.
Jeez.
So,
Yeah, I'll stick to my one sport right now. I do golf, and I'm gearing up for that season. But that's good for me.
well, if you ever need a lesson, I know where you can get one.
Yeah, I know. I was just gonna say,
Not
teaching.
for me. Not for me. I didn't mean me.
Yeah,
No, not at all.
that's what I usually tell my golfers: is you're gonna watch me do a few things, just do the opposite, and that's how you do it. So,
Well, my son told me to take 2 weeks off, then quit. So whatever. It's a
nice
great
way
game.
to. Yep,
It's a great game.
yep. That's what I'm trying to teach my students: is man, it's a lifelong game. You can't play football the rest of your life. You can't do some things, but golf, you can play that
Yeah,
for decades. So,
that's right. I don't tell my track guys that though. So
yeah,
because I don't tell them that.
yeah.
I do have 4 grandchildren that I follow, and then they live in this area, of course, and so I follow them athletically. Got one granddaughter that's at, and I know this is another enemy. Well, he's at Simpson, so
Nope.
I'm sorry, she's at Simpson. She plays golf at Simpson. My other granddaughter is actually at Abraham Lincoln High School. She's a senior. She played basketball, and she's going to go to Midland College over in Nebraska
Okay.
to play soccer. And then I've got one that already graduated. He's working down in Kansas City, and I got one that's a grandson that's in the 8th grade, and he plays all sports, which is really good.
Nice. It's nice to have them in the area too. You can keep an eye on them.
Oh yeah, right.
And I can handle Simpson a little better than Wartburg, so it's going to be tough for me to talk Wartburg here in a little bit.
Well, okay.
Man,
Well,
I tell you, as a Central guy though, I admire Wartburg because they are good at everything. Like
I,
this full program, they have it all. So
Well, when I first came to TJ, the principal was a Central grad and who was a football player, and I found out that I actually played against him at Central.
okay,
Yeah,
what was?
we
Do you remember his name?
they beat us quite regular, except for when I was a senior. So
Okay, what was your principal's name then from Central?
Van Manen.
Sounds like a pellet name right there.
Oh no, that you better believe it. Yes, sir. Jim Van Manen. He was a tough hombre. So he was a good principal. So
That's good. So I learned this about Bob before I hit record. He goes, Dan, did you know that I only moved to Britt my sophomore year of high school? And I said, I had no clue. In my notes, I put, what was it like growing up in Britt in the 50s and 60s? Literally, it was just the late 50s and into the early 60s then for you.
right.
I assumed you grew up there your whole life. So tell us about that a little bit, how you made your way to Britt your last
Well,
2 years of high school.
I had a brother that graduated from Abraham Lincoln High School in Council Bluffs. All right. And I went to Abraham Lincoln my freshman year. And then my dad got a job in Britt in a powdered milk plant. So all of a sudden, after my freshman year in Council Bluffs, then we moved to Britt. I had a sister that was in the 8th grade. And of course, they came along and so he worked in that powdered milk plant. And my mom was actually ran a restaurant in Britt called the Highway Cafe. And
Okay.
and of course we moved. And of course, it's kind of tough for young kids to move from town to town or whatever. So we moved. And luckily, when we got up there, I got involved in Legion baseball, so I got to know people in Legion baseball. Mainly as a guy named Buzz Walsh and Jerry Schrader. That's the 2 guys that that I got to meet when I got up there. And then we played Legion baseball, and then of course by August we're playing football, and school starts, and I'm ready to go. Have no
Yep.
regrets.
I met Buzzy at the alumni banquet.
Yeah,
And then, of course, Bill
he,
Frito sponsoring
Buzzy's
us when he
Buzzy's
played.
a, Buzzy's a talker, I would
Yeah,
guess.
yep, yep, good dude. So
Yeah, he is.
tell us about that powdered milk factory. Where was that located in Britt? Because I was gone before I was
Oh,
there.
let me try to get some directions. It was actually on the south. You know where the fairgrounds are?
Yep.
It was in that area.
Okay.
It was
Yeah.
in that area.
Who owned that company? Do you remember who your
I
dad's boss would have been?
I really don't know.
Yeah, I'd
I
never
know
heard of that before.
I got to work there for a while, and it was work in the hopper room where you dump the powdered milk and you get it all over your face and everything. And it was a good job.
Yeah.
It was
And
money.
your mom's restaurant, the Highway Cafe,
Yeah.
assuming near the highway, but what was that restaurant like?
Oh, I tell you what, that was a meeting place for everybody in the mornings. I'll tell you that. In
Yeah.
fact, no, it was a good cafe, had good food. I remember we used to get about, I can't remember, probably 35 minutes off for lunch at school, and we'd buzz up to the Highway Cafe and eat eat hot roast beef sandwiches. And
Oh, nice.
she made the best, so that was good.
Yep. How long did your folks stay in Britt then after you graduated? Were they moved somewhere else
Oh,
after? Or did they stay
quite a few years, and then my mom got sick and died. They were there quite a few years, and then my dad moved back down to Southwest Iowa. So, and until he died here probably, I don't know, 10 years ago or whatever. So,
there?
my dad was originally from Harlan, Iowa.
Yep.
So, and
Yep. Yeah.
you know
Another,
Harlan, you know who Harlan is. So,
oh yeah, another football powerhouse, just
right,
a little bigger level. So,
right,
yep.
right.
And talk about your siblings a little bit. Where did they end up? Or how are they doing? Are they
Well,
still around?
my brother was a teacher, and he ended up he was at Greenfield for a couple years, and then
Really?
he came to Council Bluffs. And this is while I was going back to graduate school at that time at Northwest Missouri State. So he came back to Council Bluffs and got a job actually was in a junior high, and then he eventually went up to Abraham Lincoln High School, and he became the head basketball coach at Abraham Lincoln the same time that I was the head basketball coach at Thomas Jefferson High
Oh,
School.
how'd
So
that go?
we, we were rivals, so to say the least. Of course,
How
when we
many
grew,
games did you coach against each other then?
well, we usually played,
Twice a year, probably.
yeah, take 2 times 13, that's 26.
So who had the better record?
We ended up about 500, actually.
That same. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's good. So what was his first name?
Phil.
Phil, because I
Yeah.
taught at Greenfield for a couple years.
This is probably 19, I want to say 67 or in that neighborhood sometime.
Yeah, there's some people that I know that have been there their whole lives. So if I
Yeah.
asked them, I bet you they would remember him. He's there.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, he would. In fact, he was like assistant football coach. He was assistant wrestling coach, although he was never a wrestler. He was a basketball player. But yeah,
Cool. And you said he had a sister, right? That was a couple years younger than you.
yes, she was a couple years younger. And hate to say, but both of them are gone.
Shoot, sorry to hear that.
They both passed away. So,
No, no.
and of course, I always said my sister was pretty fast running wise, but of course there was no girls athletics back when I was going to school and she was going to school. So
Yep. Yeah, and she graduated from Britt as well, I
yes,
assume.
she did.
Yeah.
Yes, she did.
And what was
Yes,
her name?
Jeannie.
Jeannie. Okay,
Jeannie.
Jeannie. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. All right. Well, we're gonna hit some sponsors here, and then we're gonna start talking some Britt basketball.
Yeah. Okay.
Levi Dunn Trucking. Thanks to Levi and his company for sponsoring the podcast. Call him at 641-860-0077. Eric Krull, I literally just got off the phone with him before Bob emailed me and said he was ready to go. Eric's my favorite brother. He works for Ag Performance in Buffalo Center, and he gets to hang out with my sons for the next 5 days. The grandparents took him. Call Eric at 515-341-3361. And then thanks to Bill Frito, he's a classmate of Bob's. Bill is the president of the alumni board in Britt for West Hancock. Never too early to start signing up for the alumni banquet. So thanks to Bill. Swenson's Hardware in Britt is your local independently owned family hardware store since 1977. Hit up John Swenson on Facebook or check him out at swensons.doitbest.com. And then Avalon Rose Design is a new sponsor of mine. Specializes in creative graphic design studio, specializing in commercial use graphics and design resources located in Crystal Lake. Check them out at avalonrosedesign.com. And then Triple B's is owned by Brett Kozlerich. He was my student teacher last year. He travels all throughout parts of Iowa and other states with his food trucks. Best tenderloin I've ever had. So hit up Triple B's whenever you know that they're in the area. All right, let's talk some Britt basketball, Bob. When you're in school, Britt was kind of a wrestling school. I mean, they kind of started up in the mid 40s, and it was a big time wrestling stuff. But
Yes.
you and your teammates, I'd say, made it a basketball school for a little while.
Well,
Your,
for a little while.
yeah,
Yeah.
your senior season was 1960-61 season. You
Right.
guys were one win away from the state tournament in
Right.
the one class format. Back then, there wasn't four classes like now.
No, it was all one class.
You played everybody. It didn't matter the size of school. You played them.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. You said
We
you.
just we ran into a lot better team. I definitely shot better from the free throw line than I did from the field. But
Yeah.
I don't know. We got beat by 12, 14 points. I can't remember what it was, but we had a good year. We probably beat a couple teams we probably shouldn't have beat, but it just got a little tougher when you move up the ladder. So
Yeah. Yeah. In my research, your senior year, you guys had four sub-state games. You scored 130 points in those four games. And I need to remind people there was no 3-point line. Were you a decent outside shooter? Were you more of a drive to the basket type of guy?
well, when you're 5'8", you're definitely not a post player.
Yeah.
And I I casted it from afar. Yes, I did.
So you
And
would have been.
I'd probably, yeah, I'd say I want to guess, I don't know, 60, 70% of the shots I took were probably outside the 3-point line. So
Okay, nice. Yeah. So we're
yeah,
going to talk about you're being 1,000-point scorer. That would have probably been a little bit more, that's for sure. So yeah, and that.
well, I needed to score 14 more because I think that's how bad I think that's how I got beat by Mason City. So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so you got 38 in a win against Algona, but you fouled out of that game with 4 minutes and 37 seconds to go and still racked up 38.
yeah,
You also got 38 against Emmitsburg, 28 against Corwith, and then 36 in a win against Titonka. Then it was Mason City, like you talked about earlier, that team that was a little bit better than you. You guys played at Roosevelt Fieldhouse.
all right.
It had to have been a pretty cool environment to play in at that.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
What else do you remember about that game?
Oh, I don't know. I think they were after me. I know that. You can tell that. I think I shot 18 free throws, so
Yeah.
they they got after me. And I know Jerry Schrader played very well. I think he had 18 points. Um, we just got beat by a better team.
Yeah. And if you compare it to today, that's a 4A school against a 1A school. So
Right.
that's probably weren't favored to win that game anyway. But who are some of your other teammates? I saw in my notes here, Ricky Johnson. Can you talk
Yeah.
about Ricky a little bit?
Yeah. Ricky was a junior. Ricky was fast. He was also a running back in football.
Yeah.
Uh, Donnie Anderson also played on that team, I think, and he was a junior. Of course, Jerry Schrader, who was a senior with me, Buzzy Walsh was a senior with me, Lee Vaughn, Jim Jacobson, Jim Rasmussen, who was a running back actually, and
Yep.
that was basically the guys that probably played. Let's see, you said Ricky Johnson.
Yeah. Marv DeWard, did you mention him?
Marv DeWard was a sophomore, and Marvin, I think, ended up going to UNI and got to play at UNI. I'm not sure,
Okay.
but he was a good player. He was just a sophomore, and yeah, he was a good player.
Yep. I ran into him at the Unidome this fall for state championship football game for West Hancock.
Yeah,
He was talking to some people I was kind of talking to, and I kind of asked who he was, and I said, I know who you are just from doing the record book for football and stuff, and had a
no,
good chat with Marv.
he was good at he was a good athlete. He was a sophomore, but I mean, he turned out to be a very good basketball player. I know that.
Yep.
So
Your coach was Fred Jaspers. What do you remember about Coach Jaspers?
well, Fred came when I was a junior, so his junior and senior year. Their coach when I was a sophomore was a guy named Holman, and I just can't think of his name. Fred was a good guy. You know, he was also the baseball coach.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was a good guy, did a good job. So he was fun to play for.
Do you remember where he went after Britt? I've read it once, but I can't
I
remember.
do. He went to Wartburg. He
He,
became the basketball coach at Wartburg. That's how I ended up at Wartburg.
so was he your coach all through college then when you played?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
and then he was also an assistant football coach at Wartburg. I don't know if he coached any baseball. He was a baseball player at Wartburg. He played basketball and baseball at Wartburg. He's a pitcher in college. He was a good player, good athlete. He was a golf nut. He was one of the many golf nuts in the world. I know that.
Yeah. Uh, what was it like going from having him be your high school coach to your college coach? Did he change what he did, or did he pretty much stick to what he
He
did in
he
Britt?
pretty much stuck the same thing.
Yeah.
So not much changed.
Yeah.
The clientele changed. The people, the players changed. I'll tell you that. A lot bigger, a lot faster. So
Yep. What after he was out of coaching, I'm guessing he's passed by now. Do you know
yes,
where
he was an official. He was
Okay.
a Big Ten official.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he was a Big Ten. I remember being down here. He knew a guy down here, and he was coaching. He was refereeing Creighton game, and I stopped and saw him for a while, and so yeah. But he passed away here a number of years ago. I can't remember, but he after he got out of coaching, he was a Big Ten official, and I would imagine he probably played a lot of golf. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yep. That's the goal when you retire. You get to play golf whenever you want, not just in the
Right,
summer.
right. Well, I don't play as much golf as I want to because, well, I got spring. I still got track, so.
Yep. How were your sophomore and junior seasons? I know your senior year, like I said, one game from state. Do you remember how you
Yeah.
did those first two
Oh,
years?
our sophomore year, I think we might have won 5 games, but I might be pressing that. And then our junior year, I don't know. I really can't tell you. We probably won 8, 9 games or something like that. And then, of course, our senior year, I think we won 17 games, and so we got better anyway.
What do you think the difference was?
Oh, personally, first of all, you're younger going up from year to year because Jerry, like for example, Jerry was a junior
Hmm.
when I was a junior. Buzz was a junior. Uh, Lee Vaughn was a junior. Jim Jacobson were juniors, and then we became seniors. So you just got a little bit better.
The
So
experience, yep,
yeah, yeah.
definitely. Cool thing, you are one of 7 Britt or West Hancock Eagles to ever score 1,000 points. You were the first one to do it, and it took 40 some years before the next guy did it, I believe. And now we've had 6 in the last like 10, 12 years. The basketball program's been in a pretty good spot lately. I don't know. Do you keep up on Britt West Hancock athletics these days a whole lot?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So we've had 3 boys teams and 4 girls teams go to state since
Yep.
2011.
Yeah.
And so we've had some good boys players, that's for sure. So we've had a lot just recently, but you were the first one, and it took a long time for there to be a second one. Um,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
was it a big deal when you got your 1,000th point? Did you even know it at the time? I mean, record wise, did they keep
Well,
track?
my coach knew it, so he just gave me a ball that had 1,000 on it or 1,000, whatever it was, and I got a new ball. That's all I got. So no, it was no big deal. I mean, it was, yeah, I guess it's a big deal. I mean, I don't want to shoot that down because it was good.
Yep. I just, nowadays we have Varsity Bound and all these online resources for statistics and stuff. So it's a lot easier to keep track of. I didn't know back then if there was as much record keeping, but uh,
No, no, back in my day when it was fall, you played football. When it was winter, you either wrestled, played basketball. When it was spring, you went out for track or baseball. In the summer, you played baseball again. So
yep,
Legion ball. So,
yep, not specialized like a lot of
oh
kids
no, there
anymore.
was no all the camps and all the things and
Yep.
that they have that these kids do. I mean, and they, you can tell they're better. They're better players. I
Yeah.
mean, they're better players, a lot better players.
That basketball you got from your coach, whatever happened to that? Do you still have it? Do you know where it went?
Yeah, it's in a trunk downstairs. It's
Still
flat.
have,
So it's
still have,
kind of flat. It's flat, kind of like me. So, well, no, my stomach isn't flat, but I'm kind of flat. So,
yeah, that's cool. I'm like, oh, that'd be a cool thing to hold on to. So, what are some of your favorite memories from playing basketball at Britt besides the big game or whatever we talked about? What are some things you remember about your teammates, classmates, certain
oh,
games?
we just had you had that group of juniors that were, pretty tight group. Whatever was going on, we were involved in it, whether it was football, all sports pretty much. And it was good times. I know in the summer before my senior year, I broke my leg.
Mm,
I broke my leg and dislocated my ankle joint. And so I, uh, I actually played the first football game. So that
oh,
was in June. And by the first football game, I got to play in that. Of course, we only played 8 football games back in those days. And then I got it. We played Osage in football. Next to the last game of the year, I got it hit again. So I didn't play the last football game. And I think I missed, I don't know, first couple games of basketball, and then it got well. So
good. Yep, and we're going to talk about football here in a minute. I'm going to hit a few more sponsors, and we'll talk some football.
good.
Thanks to Michael Ewing of Ewing Funeral Home and Monument Company, locations in Britt, Kanawha, Clarion, Belmont, and Dow's. You can call Mike at 843-3839 or 762-3211. The Showalter family and Window World of Mason City is a proud supporter of the podcast. Once an Eagle, always an Eagle. Fly high, Coach Sanger and Joey Showalter. Kelly Real Estate is your local real estate agency in Britt, owned by Steve and Deanna Kelly. Contact them at 843-4102. Then I have a new sponsor tonight. I reached out to some companies in Forest City. We have Advanced Door Systems in Forest City. They're your authorized distributor of sectional overhead doors, rolling steel doors, and electronic openers with offices in Spencer and Forest City. They're ready to serve all your overhead garage door needs. Be it commercial, industrial, or residential, they can provide quality service for your project. Their products include fireproof doors, garage doors, security doors, automatic doors, etc. They have 20 years of experience. Check them out at ads-doors.com. And then Miller and Sons Golf Cars in Britt, over 50 years experience. Contact Skip and Jim Miller at 843-4132. And then the Britt Car Truck Bike and Tractor Night Cruise is sponsoring the podcast. Jared Winger also owns Mojo Productions. Give Jared a call at 515-408-1074. And then First State Bank in Britt. They're located at 183 Main Avenue North in Britt. Call them at 843-4411 or check them out online or on Facebook. All right, I love talking about Steve Everett. What I always tell people is people that aren't in the know sometimes think it's always been Bob Sanger, and Bob Sanger was there for 52 years. But there was an era shortly before Coach Sanger where Steve Everett had one of the most respected programs in the state of Iowa for a number of years. Steve Everett was there from 55 to 62. You played for him in 58, 59, and 1960.
Yes.
The year before you got there, I found interesting, and I had it in my notes that was your freshman year, but you weren't there your freshman year.
No.
But there was a massive flu outbreak in the area your freshman year when you weren't there, and the last 2 games against Buffalo Center and Garner got canceled
Right.
because a large population of the student body was out with the flu.
Right.
So that was before you, but I just thought that was kind of neat, kind of interesting that games got canceled due to a sickness.
Right.
You came in 1958.
Right.
You were a part of one of the best eras of football until, like I said, Coach Sanger got things going really well in the mid 80s.
Right.
Talk about Coach Everett a little bit and what it meant to play in his program.
Coach Everett was as good as they get. He was kind of a father figure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know that I ever heard him raise his voice. I just, if he got mad, he'd say something like, "You guys are playing like you're picking peas." I mean, that's what he said all the time, like you're out picking peas. or picking beans. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're out picking beans. That's what he'd say. No, he was just a great guy. We had the other football coach was Kent Townley. He was the wrestling coach,
Yep.
and he was probably 5'8", 150 pounds, and nobody wanted to deal with that guy because he was tough. He was a tough guy, and he's a great wrestling coach. And that was we only had two coaches. One year we had somebody volunteer. I can't remember even who that was, but no, Steve Everett was. I don't know if he's in the Hall of Fame or not, but he should be. And he's just a great guy. I know he moved down to Southern Arkansas or down
Arkansas.
the White River, wherever that's down in Arkansas with the White River, and he got a big trailer and he went trout fishing every day. I went down and saw him play, or I'm sorry, saw him, and he just as good as I get as that guy.
Yep. Yep. I did a podcast with his son, Steve the second. It was actually
Oh,
my
really?
second ever podcast. He's out in Colorado, and that was a lot of fun to talk about his dad in depth.
Yeah.
I don't think he's in the Hall of Fame, but that's something I think needs to get brought up. I think that's a good point.
Well, it's hard to believe he's not. I mean, I don't know. But
I think a lot of coaches in that era aren't because there just wasn't as much information. And if people don't bring that knowledge up to other, the people in the positions of, taking care
yeah.
of that, they might just kind of get lost in the shuffle, unfortunately. So we can
Well,
definitely look into that.
no, he won some games, and I know that we had an undefeated year, our year, and my junior year, my sophomore year, I don't know what we tied to and lost one, or
You
I
won
don't know.
five, tied two, and lost one. So you're
Yeah,
5-1-2, but your only loss was the Clarion, and they were a lot bigger school back then than we were.
right. Yeah, yes, they were. Yeah, and then in my junior year, uh, I think we only lost one ball game.
Yep, to Belmont, 20-12.
And we lost that according to Coach Everett. We only lost, and it was a downpour.
Yeah.
But he said the only way we lost, the only reason we lost is because I couldn't see through my glasses. So he was no. We had a good team there. There were some very good players, some seniors there. A guy named Larry Highhouse. Larry
Yep.
Highhouse, yeah, he was an all-state football player. He was an all-state champion wrestler.
Yep.
There's a guy named Paul Smith.
Yep.
Again, state champion wrestler, tough hombre as a football player. And there was a guy named Miller who was a heavyweight wrestling champ, a big guy. There was some good. There was some really good. Again, a guy named Jim Bardick, who
Yep.
was a running back, who was a very good athlete. We had some. I mean, we had some real players.
Yep. It's funny you mentioned Paul Smith. He was my last podcast guest. I
Yeah,
did with him, his son, and his two grandsons, and did a wrestling episode.
yeah.
And then Larry Highhouse, I just talked to him 2 days ago. He's going to do an episode later this year.
Oh, those are real athletes there. I
Yep.
mean, they were state champs in wrestling.
Mhm.
And that was back when I think there was two classes of wrestling, and they were
8
state champ a couple of years in a
qualifiers
row.
is all. Yep. There was only 8 qualifiers per class as well,
Yeah.
per weight
Oh no.
class. So.
Oh no. And just remember, coming in that era was a guy named Bob Steenledge.
Yeah.
Bob Steenledge was the first 4-time wrestling champ in the state of Iowa. He
Yep.
was a year behind me, and he played. He played football, especially his junior and senior year.
Yep. Yep. No Bob as well. A lot of good guys back then.
Oh,
Um,
there's some athletes. I know that.
yep. So yeah, your sophomore, you guys went 5-1-2.
Yeah.
Your junior year was 7-1, an 8-point loss to Belmont. And then
Right.
your senior year was 8-0. Didn't lose a game.
Right.
Here's what gets me: your defense. You
Right.
guys gave up 19 points in 8 games.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Your scores were 33-0 against Grundy Center, 40-0 against Forest City, 34-0 Lake Mills, 27-6 at Northwood, 26-6 against Belmont, 15-7 at Osage, which Osage was no cupcake
No,
back then. And
nope, they
then
weren't.
13-0 at home against Garner, and then 26-0 at Buffalo Center.
All right.
That's 5 shutouts, and then giving up 6, 6, and 7. What was it about your defense that was so effective?
Well, let me give you the starting lineup on the offensive line, and they were the guys that played defense. Jerry Schrader was a center. He was all-state center, by the way.
Yep.
A guy named Dan Mickelson was one guard. A guy named Keith Silman was the other guard. Butch Krull, not related to you.
No, and if it
he
is,
was also a state champion wrestler.
Yep.
Dennis Krull. And the other tackle name was a guy named Loney, Dave Loney, who was tougher than nails. Buzzy Waltz was one end, Buzz Waltz eventually went to Winona State, where he was the MVP of that conference in football. And he was one end. You had other guys there. In the backfield was Dale Birchka. Dale Birchka went to Drake, and he was I know at that time they were Division I back then. Drake was. He played at Drake, and he was just a stud at Drake. He also was a state champion wrestler.
Yep.
In time. Okay. And Jim Rasmussen was a running back. Ricky Johnson was a running back. Steenledge was one of the running backs. I played quarterback. Buzz could have played quarterback. We ran kind of out of a Donnie Anderson was a one end also. We ran out of a single wing a lot of the times. And so Steve Everett was a man before his time, because all of a sudden you're looking at the single wing and it looks like a spread. Mm-hmm. Like it is today. Then we ran out of the single wing part. We called it the $1 million offense. We go $1 million right, $1 million left, $1 million reverse, $1 million fullback. That's how we called the plays on that.
Nice.
So,
what kind of defense did you guys run? What, like, fronts and stuff?
Just 5-4.
5-4.
5-4.
Load the box and load the box up a little bit and.
Oh yeah, I mean, no, we were tough. We had tough guys. We weren't near as big people wise as we were the year before. When we were juniors, they had some big kids, and we weren't big. I think Jerry Schrader was the biggest guy, and he's lucky to weigh 200 pounds.
Yep.
But had some tough kids.
Yep. I don't know if you know this, Bob, but I created a record book for the Bob Sanger era from 1968 to 2019. And then after I got done with that, I started expanding from, these most recent years. And then I started going backwards from 1967 all the way to 1899. So now we have a comprehensive record book for football.
No.
And you're in there a bunch. You had 28 career rushing touchdowns, which to this day is still tied for 12th most in school history for rushing touchdowns.
No.
Your 3 interceptions on defense in a game is tied for a school record. You and I believe 3 other guys have done that in school history. You had a pick 6. I don't remember which game it was in where you got an interception, ran back to touchdown.
I remember it. That Buffalo Center. We had to beat Buffalo Center to win the conference.
Okay, nice. And so nobody in school history has ever done that twice in a game. So you and like 40, 50 other guys have the school record still to this day, which is always kind of cool. Your 10 career passing touchdowns is still good for 10th all time in school history. If you said you follow, sports still here.
Yes.
We still don't pass.
I know. I love it. I love it. Bob Sanger was, it's blocking and tackling. Yep. I love watching it.
Yep. Do you watch any of the live streams that watch the games online at all? Any?
I have just a few.
A few times. Yeah. Yep. Oh, I love it. I can't get up there as much anymore because it's just far away and I'm busy, but I won't miss a Friday night football game. So.
Yeah. It always gets me. You watch Britt play and, they say that's old school. No, that's winning. Yeah. That's what that is. And that's good football. They throw up once in a while, but I like what he does.
Me too. Yep. And his son Mark has taken it and kept it going. Yep. You have 8 interceptions on defense. That's still tied for 7th most in school history. In a single season, your 16 rushing touchdowns in 1959 is 25th in school history. So your name is still all over that record book. I printed and released and sold the Bob Sanger one. And after the 2024 season, I'm going to re-release those with 1899 to 2024. So it'll be a lot of fun for people to see how the Sanger era compares to now the Mark Sanger era and the Everett era and all those other years before that. So it'll be a lot of fun. So, what were some of your other favorite memories from playing Britt football?
Oh, I don't know. I guess, our practices were tough. Kent Townley, who was the wrestling coach, and he'd line you up and hit heads. I remember a couple of days, and I probably wouldn't make it in this day and age. I remember a couple of times going home and I didn't remember practice. I mean, I don't even remember practicing. And so no, we just strapped it on, went out and played football. There was no jacking around, and we played football.
Yeah.
And we were lucky enough to have a lot of good athletes. I mean, there's some, you can't compare, the athletes today are, hey, they're good, but I mean, I'm not saying we were just as good, but during that period of time, we were good. So
yep. That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's all.
That's all the guys you play against, and go down in the history books for what you did.
And I'm trying to think. Of course, our biggest rivalry was always Garner. That's always a rivalry, and actually Forest City was. It seemed like Forest City was a rivalry. So,
yeah.
When
you say rivalry, was it just on the field or on the court, or was the rivalry like outside of that? Like you guys didn't like each other just in general, or was it just a competitive rivalry?
They're just competitive. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. There was an era in like the late 80s, early 90s where there was some like fights and vandalism and stuff like that. So I don't know if it was like that back then.
I don't remember any of that. So no, I don't remember that. We just, in fact, one of my best friends was from Garner, and I can't even think of his name, but anyway, we were good friends. And no, when the game is over, the game is over. Shook hands and head home.
Yep.
That's what it is.
You talked about a lot of wrestlers, and you talked about Coach Townley. Obviously, basketball was one of your sports, but do you think you would have been able to wrestle at Britt?
He tried to get me out for all through football. And every wrestler came up and wanted me to go out. And tell you the truth, I almost did it, but
yeah.
So no. In fact, at time, well, this happened more than once. Basketball practice is over. We go in the wrestling room and we wrestle those guys. We get the help. I mean, me personally, I get the hell pound out of me. We go in there and wrestling. And I remember a couple of times that we had a basketball game between the wrestlers and the basketball team. I know one thing. I know one thing. You didn't want to go shoot a layup. That's all I know. You didn't go in for a layup. You got hammered. No,
you'd earn your trip to the foul line. That's for sure.
Yes. No, and of course, and I'm sure it's like that now. The wrestlers back the basketball team, and the basketball team back there. Everybody was there. Yep. They went to the game. They weren't on their cell phones. I put it that way. Of course, there weren't any cell phones. They're lucky there aren't any phones back in that day and age.
Yep. Yep.
Maybe we used carrier pigeons. I can't remember how we communicated.
So. Yeah. So after high school, you graduated from Britt and went to Wartburg. You talked about Coach Jaspers.
Yeah.
Moving from Britt to Wartburg. So that's one of the reasons why you made it over there.
Right.
Again, I'm a Central guy, so it hurts a little bit talking Wartburg, but man, I do have a lot of respect for Wartburg these days. They're always just good across the board. So talk about your time at Wartburg and being a Knight.
I played 4 years of football at Wartburg. I started for 3 years, and I guess I started for 4 years in football. And basketball, I played actually 3.5 years of basketball because I busted my clavicle. I busted my clavicle in football, so I was kind of out. But I got to start a few games in basketball, and basketball was good. I actually, as a freshman, I went out for baseball for 1 year.
Okay.
That got to be a little tough. A guy
Yeah.
named Ernest Opperman was the coach at Wartburg College. He's kind of a figurehead around there, but I enjoyed it. I had good times, and it was good. Of course, it was especially good because I met my wife there. So
Nice. And you were telling me earlier she has a connection to the Sangers, right? I forget what that is.
yes,
All right.
yes, she graduated with Linda and Bob Sanger from Monona.
Nice.
And I went back. I guess I maybe only went back to one of her reunions and talked to him. But I saw Bob quite often because he was a track coach and at the state meet. I talked. He was at the state meet and I was at the state meet, so I talked to him quite often.
Yep. And speaking of that, let's roll right into track. You said you've been coaching for 53 years now. What keeps you going coaching track?
I have no. I guess I just try to get even. I don't know. No, I don't know. I like track. I ran track. I wasn't a great track guy. I qualified for the state meet in the 180-yard lows a couple times. Did nothing, but I like track. My brother was a very good track guy at Abraham Lincoln. In fact, he ended up going to Wayne State to run track in Nebraska. But I don't know. I just it's kind of like there are so many things in track. It's I'm not going to say it's like the golf swing, but there are so many things, whether it's a discus thrower, a high jumper, a hurdler. There's so many that keeps me interested, you
Yeah.
know, and when you quit learning, you better quit coaching. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and I always liked track, and of course I like basketball. Whatever the season was, I coached basketball down there 28 years, not the head coach, but I was assistant coach for.
Mhm.
And I just whatever season is, I kind of like it.
Yep. What are some of the successes you've had as a track coach in 53 years? What are some of your highlights?
Oh, I've had a couple of Drake Relay champions. I had a low hurdler, had a sprint medley relay with state champs. I had another hurdler that was a state champ. I had a shot putter. This is kind of funny because they were brothers. One was quite a bit older than the other one, and he was a state champ, and probably about 6 years later, his brother was a state champ, which was kind of neat. And
Yeah.
one of those, the oldest one actually was a Drake Relays discus champ as well. So,
Cool.
but I don't know, I'm not getting into politics, but I guess this isn't politics. I like helping kids. I like coaching kids. I like seeing smile on their face when they look at the watch. They might have improved 1 second from running 400 meters or something to see the smile on their face. It's kind of worth it.
Yep.
So
Cool. And
I enjoyed it.
you've probably had some like father son combos. You've coached, this kid's dad, and I'm
Well,
sure you
let's go grandfather.
grandfather.
Let's go grandfather. Yes. Oh, yes. Yes, I have. Oh,
That's got
no.
to be fun too, just to see those generations come through and get
Oh,
to
yeah.
know families and
No, no. I've had some people I coach, their grandkids. I've had them come through there. So,
yeah.
no, I enjoy it.
What's the number situation look like at the Council Bluffs high schools and some of those 4A schools out there? Are you guys getting pretty good numbers still? Have you seen a decline, or has it been pretty steady
Are you talking about athletically?
for track? Like, are
Oh,
you?
track. I don't know. I get, you go to a place like Waukee, and we go to that meet, or we used to go to it meet. Uh, 2 years ago, they had 206 guys out for the boys track team.
Jeez,
206.
jeez. What do
You'd
you
think
do?
you might be able to find 4 quarter milers there.
Yeah,
Uh, we have 51 out, and we're happy.
yeah,
So yeah, and no, I think it's probably tougher on the girls' side. I think they have trouble getting the girls to go out for, you got soccer, you got golf and whatever. So
then all the club sports and stuff like that.
yeah, oh yeah, they're not there.
AAU. Yep. So that's tough.
I'm just old school. I just think you can go from season to season. And that those I told you that I coached football, went to basketball, went to track. That was the best of times. And
Yep.
that's who I was. Of course, I was a lot younger then, but it's it's fun. I enjoy it. When it isn't fun anymore, I'll hang it up or I'll just fall over on the track. Then they'll haul me off.
Yep. Yep. Well, commendable for you to be coaching 50 plus years. It's some people might say it's harder to connect with kids these days and all that stuff, but I've always been like, kids are still kids. Like their environment around them has changed, but
Yeah,
kids still want the same thing. They want attention, they want support.
yeah.
And so I commend you for doing what you've done for so long. It's really, really neat to see that.
I actually think they want. I think they want discipline.
Yeah.
I think they want to be and and I'm kind of that kind of coach. I believe that accountability. You got to be where you're supposed to be and do what you're supposed to do, and that's a pretty simple statement, but that's what would solve a lot of problems. And I'm that way, and I believe the kids like it.
Yep.
Now they don't like going out what I did tonight. I ran 400s. I didn't personally, of course, but I had them run 400s. I know they didn't like that, but I tell them what they're going to feel like afterwards, and it comes true. So,
Yep.
but no, I enjoy coaching. I have enjoyed coaching whether I coached basketball or football. I just the more a kid goes out for a lot of things, that's his life. You know, sometime when he gets to be 35 years old and he looks back and he says, I wish I would have done that. See, it's too late.
Yep.
It's too late.
Yep.
So,
Well, I have those talks too with some kids. I don't know if I'm going to go out this year. I'm like, why not? Why wouldn't you? Well, I don't know. I said, are you going to do it 5 years from now? Well, I can. I'll be at high school. Said, exactly. Do it now.
right.
And sometimes you get those that gets through to them. Sometimes they think they're smarter than you and they don't listen to you. And then they come back to you later and go, ooh, wish I would have done that. So,
It's who they meet. I
yep.
mean, no matter what the sport is, you are in contact with somebody from another team. And
Mm,
so when you're 45 years old, you're sitting waiting for the plane to go off. You sit alongside of somebody and say, "Hey, who are you?" Well, I'm such and such from Forest City. Really? When did you graduate? Yeah, same time I graduated. Oh, I must know you. So just
yep.
the experiences of life. That's all it is.
Yep. Oh, I trust me. My wife's always like, when we go somewhere, please don't ask someone where they're from. I do that all the time. And she's like, oh, geez, here we go again. You're going to be in this guy's wedding in 5 years, and we don't even know him right now. So, yeah,
Good one. That's a good one, Dan.
yeah. So, well, Bob, I appreciate this. This has been a lot of fun. Like I said, I love connecting with people, especially from I call it the Steve Everett era, because you know, it's just,
It was a little slower in those days, probably, but
it
it
was a
was
good
good
time.
times. I have no regrets that of course, as soon as my folks went up to Britt, I'm a sophomore and spent my whole life in Council Bluffs, and now I have to go to Britt, Iowa. Believe me, I have no regrets that I went there. I, I respect that a lot. I enjoyed the 3 years that I had there at Britt, and it's the best of times.
Good deal. Well, again, I got to plug my book again because Bob, you're in this book a bunch. And if you want to learn more about Bob's era, playing football and a lot of those wrestlers he talked about, please message me about the book. Um, put a lot of time into this thing. There's Coach Everett right there on the screen. You can see. Can you tell who that is next to Coach Everett? Would you know who that is just by looking
Yeah.
at that picture?
That's Buzz Walsh.
That's Buzz. Okay, all right. Well, Buzz, you better contact Buzz. Tell him he better buy the book. He's on the cover. So
Buzz too cheap. He wouldn't buy
I'm gonna make sure he watches this now. That's for sure.
it.
So yeah,
No, that's Buzzy. That's all those suspension helmets. If you
yeah,
hit somebody too hard, the webbing busts. So
yeah. It wasn't protecting a whole lot of your head, I'm
nah,
guessing.
no, not at all.
So,
And no mouthpieces, nothing like that.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Didn't even have a mouthpiece.
And like you said, concussion protocols weren't even a part of your vocabulary.
Oh
So,
no, it was, how many fingers,
yeah, it's close
so
enough.
you say 3, you're close. Okay.
Yep, yep. True or
Yeah.
false? Am I holding up some fingers? True. All right, you're good to go. So,
Right,
yeah.
right, right.
All right, Bob. Well, next up on the podcast, I have Kamille Goepel, and then I'm doing a media episode with some guys that have covered West Hancock sports, whether it be on TV or newspaper. And then I have all 4 of the Sanger sons, and then all 6 of the Kelly brothers, good wrestlers, and then the 1981 boys golf team coming up. And I have all 2023 planned out. So hit me up if you want to sponsor any of those episodes. So, um, Bob, anything you want to throw out last minute here? I always give the guests one more chance to say something before we end the
Hey,
call.
go Eagles. Go Eagles.
I like that. I can go with that.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Bob, and go Eagles.
Thank you.